Paul and Betty Harris were teenage sweethearts. Their courtship lasted 5 years until they married on May the 2nd, 1973. The magnificent duo, as they once called themselves, had one child. His name was Tim. He was a son with an active imagination. An imagination that blossomed at midnight. Their living quarters was a cramped bedsit on the North Circular Road, Dublin. Both of them had jobs, yet they did not save a penny. Now, even if they had a penny, it could not save them, for their wages were so small and the bills so large that a penny, earned or otherwise, could not make a dint in their predicament. Life wasn't turning out as they had hoped. They endured long days and even longer nights. Tim, their 6-year-old, refused to sleep. Like ships passing in the night, they would meet them and find themselves in the same place. The cold and welcoming kitchen. The kitchen was an hospitable space. When they met there, they wear the same expression, which seemed to say, "Nobody told me it'd be like this. I thought it was your turn to get Tim to sleep," asked Betty. "Funny, I was thinking the same thing." "What? It was your turn?" "No, it was yours." "Oh, I see. That's the way you want to play it. You bring him screaming into the world. You raise and work and keep a house." "House? Where's that?" "What? House." He bent, pulled up the tablecloth, muttering, "I'm sure I saw one under here." "Ha ha, amusing. Always the clown. Like your outfit." "My outfit? And what about your own? Crack a jaw." "My mother. How dare you? What about your own? Snappy nappy. And your outfit? Swallow the flagon. Did he take swimming lessons to learn how to dive into the bottle?" "Oh yeah. Forgot your outfit was a priest and your own was a nun. She used the holiest shocking family ever to walk the streets of Dublin." Betty rubbed her thumb and finger together, melting. "We're here because of you." Dropping her head, she moaned, while Tim screamed for a drink. Yes, he screamed for a drink, his Teddy, whom he called Noddy, and a bread and jam sandwich, which he never eats. Gloom and doom came into the space. It was everywhere. On the walls, the floors, the aged, torn chairs. Paul picked up a cup and went to the sink. His tight grip broke the handle. The cup crashed off the ground beside the overflowing bin. His mind took him off to a different place. He did not mind that, because any place would be better than where he stood. He hated that room, the job, long hours, the high taxes, the low pay. He hoped for a better life for his family. However, every effort he made all amounted to the same thing: doom and misery, and a never-ending circle of hopelessness. It had been a difficult year, and the winter was even more challenging. In his youth, he had been the fellow with the jokes, the toast of the ball, Mr. Laugh-a-Minute. All he did now was spend his time hiding his irritations. He felt as though it was consuming him, yet he knew that if showing his true feelings would only complicate matters further. Instead, he chose to channel his energy into finding the smallest moments of joy amidst the frustration. Betty was small while Paul was tall. She liked coffee, he preferred tea. He loved football, she liked bingo. He hid things, she let everything out. Because Betty cried. She fretted over her job, his job, the kitchen, the floors, the cracked plaster, the leaky tap, the walls, the paint, freckled brown, with red spit at the bottom. Tim asked Santi if he could bring him a little brother. Betty never had a second, not the tiniest moments, to think a thought or daydream, a big dream. She loved cooking. She cherished the moment when her work finished and she closed the hall door. There she'd sit at the fire, the heat raging similar to a dragon from a children's storybook. Up went the bag of spuds, relaxing on the counter. Up they went. She'd wash them, peel them, chop them, then boil them, frying the sausages while the peas bubbled. Mammy, mammy, get me this. I want a drink, make me that. I want my dinner, get me milk. The constant demands from scream the place down Tim. She loved to bake, and bake she did. Her favourite thing, a strawberry tart. I'd like a slice now, she thought, as Paul's mind came back to him. He found a different cup and gave Tim a drink. Then he fled to bed. Betty followed an hour later. They spent the late hours pulling and tugging at blankets and hitting pillows that was once white, but now the colour of the stained ceiling. The night time was endless, and so they woke to another morning. When they did, they greeted each other with a grunt. Then they got ready for work. Next, Betty dropped Tim off to her mother's before racing to her job. While there, she poured out her heart to her friend Boo. Boo listened. She did. She'd good ears for that. To Moany Betty, as she secretly named her, and said, "Ah, love, we're all in the same boat." Betty eyed her and thought, "I don't think so." See, Boo looked like an air balloon that had tiny feet and a rather small head. The thought crossed her mind again. "I don't think so." There was a pause and shared glances, as if they both knew what each other was thinking. Betty gave the air a little kick with her foot, for no other reason than to give the air a little kick with her foot. Boo did the same thing, only Betty used her left, while Boo used her right. As for Tim, read him stories. That'll see him off to sleep. Are you sure, Boo? As sure as my fella is a drunken fool at will. Yes'll be right as rain after a good night's kip. From then on, Betty did as Boo said. Tim hit the pillow like a labouring man and dreamed the twilight through. However, as Tim slept, Paul's ageing uncle arrived, not for a day but to stay. His name was Tom, but everybody knew him as Grumpy. Boo. His words came to mind. Don't mind him, and don't mind what doesn't mind you. Now, this left them separated. This often left Betty lying on the couch rather than the bed, because the man would get in between them, where she'd shoot a blanket or fist the cushion on the chair. She'd stare at the ceiling, at the picture on the wall. Her mother's words charged at her like something she'd rather run from. Betty, love, if that Paul gets you in the family way, you'll wish to God you never met him. Mark me words, Betty, the wall he'll drive you up won't be a fancy one. It'll be full of rot and smelly paper, put there when Charlie Chaplin was in shorts. Charlie Chaplin. Mark me words, Betty, mark me words. The wallpaper wasn't the only thing that smelled, so did the chair. It was green, itchy and alive with uninvited guests like hoppers, little hoppers that bite at midnight to crawl in your skin. The sofa and Betty had fallen out the second they met. The chair cast away from some old bus or one of those seats she sat on a train. Yeah, like everything in that place. She hated that chair. And the voice of her mother, the one in her head, sounded like Daffy Duck. She didn't know why. The voice of her mother in her head sounded like Daffy Duck, but it did. If Daffy Duck wasn't talking, Grumpy was barking, while Betty was moaning and little Tim was screaming. whom Grumpy called Crabby, in a bedsit the size of a wardrobe, with a kitchen that was tiny, broken and angrier than a Tasmanian devil. Paul could have fixed it all up, but he refused to, because he never planned on staying. See, Paul worked in construction. He liked it and disliked it at the same time. Well, what he was not happy about was being the get me this and grab me that guy. Although Paul was not skilled, he was not a skilled tradesman, but he had good insight into many things in construction, like project management. He wasn't an electrician, but he knew his way around it, the same as plumbing and carpentry and block laying. But no one ever asked him to do anything other than sweep up, go to the shop, put on a bet, or make the tea. He gazed out the window. The horizon called to him, a tantalising promise of freedom and excitement. Perhaps it was time to take the leap of faith and embrace the unknown, rather than merely letting life pass him by. He didn't want to be alive and not live. He wanted to live the life he was living in his dream world, but bring it into reality. Paul had a dream, one that was not only found on his pillow, but it lived in his head. He wanted his own company, so one afternoon, he strolled off the job. He had enough of all the tall orders and small tasks. Without informing his wife, he went about advertising himself as a building contractor. Kindness is the beauty in the face of the humble. Mr. Don. Chapter 2. Mr. Ernest Don walked across his parlour and opened the kitchen door. The scullery was old, with wires hanging here and there. The leaky bath had left a stain on the ceiling. A few days earlier he almost tripped as he tried squeezing between the cooker and the table. It was time he got something done, and he knew it. Oh yes, it's time I got something done, I know it. He became increasingly aware as the years passed of how much more a death trap the cramped space had become. Lo and behold, as he pondered such matters, a flyer came in through the letterbox, advertising Paul's business. Intrigued, he picked it up and studied it, which promised a complete kitchen overhaul and an extension at a reasonable price. Perhaps this was the opportunity I have been waiting for, he thought. Mr. Don was a reader. He studied papers, books, and anything his eyes fell on. He did this for leisure, as he possessed an extensive knowledge in many subjects. He loved music, and his favourite song was "Take a Chance on Me." He sang it so much that all who knew him, were close to him, called him Abba. After Mr. Don, or Abba as he was called by his nearest and dearest, read Paul's flyer for the second time, he said, "This is the guy I need." So he sat and wrote him a letter. A few days later, the postman arrived at Paul's house, and he got it. With a cup of tea in hand, Paul looked over the letter and the task outlined by Mr. Ernest Don. Paul thought, this is a massive job. Well, the largest one I'd ever undertaken. To him it was a major milestone. Following this, he thanked Mr. Ernest Don in writing. Paul arranged the day and the hour, and as he thought so, he did. When he arrived at the house, he noticed that the glass in the door needed replacing. He looked through it and saw no one, except a long hall and a strange silence, and a coat of mail. The coat of mail was in the corner, and a strange silence was everywhere. How can you see a strange silence? He asked himself. He knocked once, twice, but he received no answer. Paul stepped back, glanced at the window, and pulled the paper from his pocket. He was at the right address, the one Mr. Don gave him. He was about to stroll away, but he knocked the third time. And when he did, he heard a noise coming from the rear of the building. A light came on. As the aged man appeared, he sauntered along the hall. He had bright eyes and a kind smile. Paul was taken aback when he saw what he could only describe as a divine expression. The grey-haired man was strong in build for a man of his age. His cheeks were full like ripened apples. He was dressed in a checked trousers, a tartan shirt, black braces. With an open hand, Mr. Don welcomed his guest. Over a cup of tea, and in time, they chatted and became friends. There is something about the old man, Paul thought, but he just could not put his finger on it. In fact, in the garden the other day, before, he pointed his finger towards Mr. Don's shoulder, but his finger closed by itself. Paul brushed it off and went about his day. It was 4 weeks later, on a bright, beautiful day, that the project began. Light in a dark place is a friend to the wise, but the companions of the foolish love the darkness. Mr. Don, Chapter 3. At the first appearance of light, Mr. Don emerged from the sitting room and directed his steps to the rear of the house. He sipped his tea and inspected the work. A popular song from the past invaded his mind, so he whistled along with the melody while surveying the work before him and savouring his drink. It was not until lunchtime that Mr. Don ventured towards the extension to bring the lads a pot of tea. There was plenty to be done and plenty to see. The workers wore jeans, others wore overalls, but together they laboured with joyful hearts. For a long time Mr. Don stood there, the light of the afternoon bouncing off the glass. From his dwelling he watched them all and considered all they did. A memory that had danced in mid-air sky came to him. He recalled the day he passed a few schoolboys and saw the one who ran to the window and snubbed his nose against the glass, watching the builder inside working away. The boy saw a few tools lying on the windowsill. He crept towards the door. There was a market, and at the top of the noisy street a woman stood. She knew Mr. Don, and as quickly as Mr. Don turned his head, the woman came close, past the boy and said, "Long will you love simple ways. Run from the pot, young boy." His friends called him, "Paul, Paul, come on." He went to run, but stopped dead in his tracks. He looked at the woman and stared into the eyes of Mr. Don. "The job's going well," said Mr. Don as he approached Paul. "It'll continue, weather permitting, like, you know what I mean?" He stopped, looked around and said, "We'll finish it on time." "Excellent. What about all those bushes by the wall? Do you want us to clear them?" No. "They might block the light," Paul said. "Follow me." "Follow you where?" "Over here." Mr. Don wandered to where the thicket expanded. He dragged them apart the way a fellow separates curtains. Then he nodded, and Paul bowed his head and stepped beyond the opening. And suddenly their clothes changed, and they wore garments that was fashionable in Roman times. But yet it was like they were unaware, and yet they felt no uneasiness about what had took place. And Paul never questioned it. In front of him was an enormous garden with broad spread apple trees and a wide array of plants. The sunset in the sky smiled on the garden, so the grass glistened. The beauty of the garden left Paul speechless. "This is perfect." Yeah, Mr. Don. But why? Hide it? Yeah. I don't. There are so many wondrous things in life, but few find them. I wonder if I ever will. You can find whatever you're looking for, but you can't find what you don't know to look for. What a strange thing today, Paul thought. His thoughts interrupted him by a voice behind him. "Paul! Paul!" He turned his head swiftly. "Paul!" cried a voice. "I better be going, Mr. Don. Got a bit of work to do, finish this, you know what I mean? The lads will be looking for me." And as soon as he stepped back into the garden, his clothes changed, and he was, as he had been, a builder.